As we all know, maintaining any marriage or long-term relationship is a challenge, but it can be especially hard when the couple has lost a baby during pregnancy. New research has found relationships are more likely to end after a couple suffers a miscarriage or stillbirth than if the couple had had a successful pregnancy. To learn more about it, we turn to ABC News Chief Medical Editor, Dr. Tim Johnson.
And joining us to talk about this very important issue is Dr. Cheryl Kingsburg, who is Chief of the Division of Behavioral Medicine at University Hospital's Case Medical Center in Cleveland, where she is a professor of reproductive biology. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And briefly describe this very important new study.
Well, you're right, Dr. Johnson. This is a very important study because although intuitively we would think that having a miscarriage or a stillbirth would cause relationship problems, we really haven't studied it in detail. So this was the first of its kind to really study a large number of couples, over 7,000, over 15 years, to see what the impact of both miscarriage and stillbirth would have on both married and unmarried couples living together. And the impact is devastating.
And give us just some quick numbers.
Sure. Over time, across this 15-year period, we know that 40% of couples are going to break up anyway, but above and beyond that, with the results of miscarriage and stillbirth, the numbers jump significantly to 20% more of those couples are going to break up simply because of miscarriage within the first 3 years of that miscarriage, and over 40% more of couples who've suffered a stillbirth are going to end up in divorce or breaking up over the next 9 years. This is huge.
And I guess we're not surprised to see some differential between miscarriage and stillbirth, that is, stillbirth typically occurring later in the pregnancy, involving a more visual experience for the couple. I assume you were not surprised either.
No, I'm not surprised at all. The impact of a stillbirth is very traumatizing. Often couples have to go through a long labor and delivery, and there's an experience of really holding the child, and so the impact can be much more devastating for couples. You know, with miscarriage, we're looking at both first and second trimester losses, and really couples vary in terms of how they interpret a loss with miscarriage. But stillbirth, it is very clear that it's the loss of a child.
So when these events happen under the care of an obstetrician, in most cases, what do you recommend that the obstetrician and the medical team do to both prevent problems and or detect early signs of problems?
Well, I think number one, this study shows the obstetrician or the nurse midwife or any healthcare professional that these couples are at risk. Even if they look like they're coping well, we know that over time they're at risk. So number one, these healthcare professionals need to be aware that couples need to be supported, that these couples need to be encouraged to get some counseling, to really talk through these differences. And let me just share with you what some of the reasons may be why these couples break up. Just think about the fact that these were all heterosexual couples. Men and women often will deal with grief very differently, and especially when it comes to pregnancy loss. Number one, couples may have differences in their hopes and dreams for being parents, and how they cope with grief is very different. And sometimes if a man and a woman differ in how they cope, that can create strain in a relationship. So what we hope is that couples use this time to sort of team up and bond, and many couples do. They become stronger because of it. But there are many couples who don't know how to communicate, and so the obstetrician giving that information, suggesting that they're not alone in this and that they need to get some help to prevent ongoing losses, because what we certainly don't want to do is add yet another loss to a couple who've already experienced a loss, which would be the breakup of the relationship. So a little bit of education goes a tremendously long way.
Do you have any sense of how rigorous, how good medical care, obstetrical care in this country is in dealing with this issue? That is it pretty routine for the obstetrical team to deal with this issue directly and overtly in every case?
Well, unfortunately not. We are getting better at it, and we have teams within OBGYN departments that really are geared to addressing the concerns of these patients. But honestly, we really need to educate healthcare professionals to look beyond just the medical issues, because oftentimes we're thinking about survival, we're talking about immediate medical needs, but these are sort of long-term consequences, and oftentimes couples sort of slip through the cracks.
And an important subject. We thank you for taking the time to talk with us about it.
Thank you very much.